Hey, solopreneurs, quick note before this episode kicks off. This is part of the How to Grow Your Business series. I'm bringing in a whole bunch of experts between how to grow your business on LinkedIn to how to handle your team and make sure that you're managing your contractors the right way to really help you grow your business. I hope you enjoy these episodes and have a fantastic listen. Hey, solopreneurs, Gabe here. Today we have Derrick Michaud. He is on for the second time, and he's going to talk about his what's next. And as you've been listening, you've started to hear this what's next stuff going on in my podcast. And the whole idea is we start to hit levels in our business that we have the question like, what's next? What's my next step? What should I be doing next? Well, Derrick is going to share his story of what he calls the Real Hernando, which is a really cool idea that I think is fantastic. So I'm going to stop there, let you listen to this podcast, and I will be talking to you again at the end. Thank you for listening, as always. Derrick, thank you for being on Solopreneur Money.
Glad to be here, Gabe. Thank you for having me again.
Yes, yes. This is number 2 for you in a pretty darn short amount of time, which is really cool. I'm excited to have you on for the second time because we're going to talk about something different. And what we're going to talk about is what I would call the what's next piece. And for those of you listening, this is going to be part of what's called the What's Next series, where we're talking about different things like what's next. We get stuck on something different. We hit a certain level of success, and it's like, all right, what's next? Or we want to grow in a different way, and we need a idea of what's next. And what Derrick's going to do is he's going to talk about what he calls the Real Hernando, which I just absolutely love the name, love the title. But before we go there, for anybody who hasn't heard the other episode with Derrick on, we got to have Derrick's story. So Derrick, tell us your story.
Yeah, so I live in the Memphis, Tennessee area, and back in 2019, I created an LLC called Shelby Row Productions, which is a podcast production agency, and that proceeded or came after 18 months of just being a freelance audio editor, which eventually found myself in a position where I needed to scale up. I needed to figure out how to break the ceiling because I was tapped with my earning potential. I was tapped with my hours per week. And I was losing opportunities with certain clients because I had less off service offerings to give. They were kind of looking for things that I just couldn't do, like graphic design, web design, and copywriting. So eventually I was like, you know what? In order for me to, at that time, my next step was create an LLC and start hiring and building team, which opened my bandwidth and then increased my service offerings and overall quality. So, and then off and running. And now it was June of 19. That last 6 months of that year was, as you know, being a business owner, and you're just kind of throwing things at the wall and trying to learn how to be a business person too. I'd never owned a company before, but right into 2020, ball started rolling, and 2 full years in now, and I went from a lower 5 figure, um, self-employed freelancer to a 6 figure agency.
That's fantastic. What kind of effect did COVID have on your business? Did it increase it? Did it decrease it? Did it hold? I mean, what happened when the whole shutdown of the world happened with you now that we're a couple years out from there?
It blew up in a way. It just, also the timing was, again, leading into 2020 is when I started hiring and starting this new process and having that bandwidth to really hustle more and get those clients. But sure enough, it seemed like 2020 hit, and all of a sudden opportunities were coming in. What I can definitely say is, there's a hard data when people are coming to me and saying, "Hey, I have time now, so I want to now publish an episode every week instead of every other week." So current clients were boosting up that way. A lot of my clients wanted to do COVID special episodes. And then in general, new clients coming in. And I think it's just because people had time and money, for the most part. A lot of people didn't have the money part, but but yeah, and I know a lot of other producers that I network with. Same thing. Like we all were boosted. Now, come 2021, that's when I started feeling, even though I grew 30% from 2020 to 2021, which was nice. But it was then I started feeling the hangover from COVID, because now all those people in 2020 that had the free time didn't have that free time anymore. The summer opened up with concerts. Remember 2020, there was no concerts, Gabe. I mean, how crazy is it that to think about, no 4th of July. 4th
Hmm.
of July canceled. It's like, so there was nothing to do even in the summertime. So come 2021, I really started feeling the fallout. People kind of just, didn't have the time anymore. So, but still, 2021 was another great year.
Interesting. So when 2021 came around, did you notice the amount of clients go down? How did that? What was that change? What was that like?
There was definitely some that just faded away. Some just fade away. You can follow up with them, and some of them hit you back and say, "Look, I'm the funny line is, you know what? I'm only going to podcast when I feel inspiration for it." All right, thank you. Good knowing you. That's just another way of saying I just don't have time for it. So there was a lot of that, a lot of drop off. And but slowly and surely was always trying to keep up with that pace. If I lost two, try to get three. And again, like I said, I grew, so it wasn't a total debacle as far as losing clients, but yeah, it was just a matter of people either not having the time anymore, or now money was tighter and they went with a I don't want to say a cheaper option, but a lower rate option than me.
Yeah, that makes sense. A couple questions are coming up as I'm listening to this, and I'm thinking about the podcasting world, and I'm thinking about, okay, people have time when COVID starts. They're like, all right, I'm going to start a podcast. Well, I don't know what the latest numbers are and the amount of podcasts that are out there, but it is a humongous number. Is it?
Yeah, seven figures.
It's a huge number of the amount of podcasts that are out there. But the amount of podcasts that make it past, is it what, the 13th episode, or what is the statistic? It's something like 13, isn't it?
I'm not sure on that one. Honestly, I'm not sure on any of the statistics, but I hear through networking, because I network in Clubhouse and whatnot. And the stat that's really eye opening is, I don't know about per like how many episodes, but way over half of the seven figures of podcasts out there are just sitting there. They're non-active. So imagine that. That's telling. People come in, they come in hot, maybe they have unrealistic expectations. They expect to have more downloads, or some are really naive and think you can monetize and after 10 episodes. And then they also the realization of like, wow, this is actually a lot of work. This is takes a lot of time. And then, well, okay, well, let's save some time. Let's try to hire an editor and see what that does. Oh, wow, this is actually pretty expensive too. And it just kind of becomes less priority for them. So I think it's a combination of different things that people just fade away for.
Well, and where I'm going with that is my curiosity lies in two things, and I think the second thing will then lead us into how the Real Hernando came about, which is what we're going to talk about. But the first question that I have is, how are you going about qualifying your potential clients to make sure that you are not a 10 episode and gone, or 3 episode and gone? I mean, what did you learn through this process to dial in what I would call maybe a qualification system? Because that's a huge thing for solopreneurs in any business, to make sure that you got qualified people coming in who are actually going to pay the bills and keep going with you to be great clients, which is then allows you to build a business.
Great question. I finally figured it out. Well, I can't say I figured it out, but now I do have that. I do have the system in place, and really, what it is I was looking out for myself and the agency, and in a way, because yeah, it's tough bringing in a new client that's gung ho. Spend all this time to develop them. 3 episodes in, they fade away. Well, that was a lot of work, an effort to get things going with no longevity. So it's hard to forecast your income and revenue and everything. So I finally raised rates and put together a payment structure where if you want to come use me, then it's a minimum episode buy-in, 50% upfront, monthly retainer, therefore after, the other 50% is divided up into a monthly installments, really putting the pressure on, if you're really serious about this and you want quality and you want to work with a team of people that's going to really deliver and bring your expectations to reality, well, it's going to take this. And if the amount of money and the payment structure or even both combined scares them away, then they're not qualified for me. So I really set that up. I finally was like, you know what? I need to work with people that are taking this seriously. So that was my way to kind of mitigate all that.
Yeah, I mean, as I was preparing for this, I started thinking, okay, podcast producer. There's tons of podcasts out there. I don't even know the numbers. And then you add on the fact of over half of them are inactive, which means they recorded 1, 2, 3, 10 episodes, and then they stopped. And I'm thinking of the time and the effort and the work that you put in, and the idea that, okay, I've built a business, I've hired all these contractors to help support this.
Hmm.
I need to be able to plan. I need to be able to get an idea. I need to be able to pay for my food for my family and pay for my place to live and pay my bills. And it's really hard to plan on people who are only here for 3 episodes or 4 episodes or 5 episodes.
I don't want to. I know your audience is full of podcasters. Everyone's a podcaster, right? And I'm not trying to disrespect, but for you out there listening, and you do hire a producer and editor and everything, yes, please take that into consideration. That when you when you back out for 2 months and then you come back, it makes it harder for the producer, because the producer's contractors needed to fill up space because now they've lost that work, and it puts me as the owner in a position where I might not have space for you, and the rates might change, the structure changes. So just take that in consideration, that when you come in, let's try to balance it out so we can all have some longevity together.
Yeah, yeah, and we're all in this together. So yeah, I appreciate you sharing that piece. The next question that I have, I think, leads into the Real Hernando, is what are you doing then to what I would say maybe diversify your business and do the things to help solve the problem that we just talked about podcasters coming in and then those podcasters are gone. So I think that leads into your what's next, and we'll call it the Real Hernando. Tell us about the Real Hernando.
So the Real Hernando has an interesting story, on how it all unfolded, and it was designed for many reasons, but on a business front, it was a marketing arm for my company, SRP, to break into the local marketplace for me, because up until now, it's all been virtual, and everyone relates to that. It's a virtual world, so all my clients are virtual. I've only met one of my team members in person. I live in the Memphis area. He lives in Nashville. So we've had lunch a bunch of times when I go out there often, but that's it. You know, I've had, I'm currently, I think I have 14 on the team. Over the last 2 years, I've probably worked with over 20 throughout, and some go, and I've only met one. So very virtual. So I've always liked the idea of, like, how can I break in local? And big picture, big dream is to have a studio office so I can now work with local businesses to get podcasting in. So I never really had an answer for that. So what happened was, I live in Hernando, Mississippi, which is just south of Memphis. and it's a very small city of like 20,000 people, but it has a small town feel. There's over 100 mom and pops here that thrive, that do very well. So it's a higher income area. And they're very community based, very protective of the city. Uh, Now we have some of the high end, amenities. Like we do have a Walmart, we have a Kroger, which is a grocery chain down here. But none of those came without fighting and arguing about it. But they're here. But boutiques and cafes and just you name it, awesome small mom and pop. So we also have a great farmers market. So I one Saturday go to the farmers market, and a good friend of mine owns a company called Slow Roast Mississippi Coffee, and it's just a small little business. They don't even have brick and mortar, hence why they're at the farmers market. They kind of do that and word of mouth and small batch micro roasting. And we get to talking, and he's like, "Yeah, so this ice cream store down the street uses my coffee for ice cream, for their ice cream, and you can find it. You can find my coffee bags on the shelves at Commerce Street Market. So again, local, and then this other company is sourcing local ingredients for their ice cream, and molecules started popping in my head. Like I can't explain it, but it was so heartfelt. I was like, this is so cool. This is so old school. A lot of these restaurants go to the farmers market to source those vegetables to then use for themselves. And I walked away from that experience changed. Like, man, how do I get involved with this? And then it circles back to how do I get local? Um, and I decided to start a podcast called The Real Hernando. And what it is I'm interviewing these local businesses, but it's story based. This is not information tutorial style podcasting. It's story. So people by people, right? So, and you walk into said boutique and you go there all the time. You love their clothes. You do business with them, but who's the owner? Even some of these mom and pops, the owners are kind of in the behind the scenes. They're not putting their face out in social media. So who is the business, right? So that's my job to book a time with that person, interview them, get their story, which eventually leads to how they started their business and what it's all about. But it starts with where you're from, where'd you go to high school? Write down, or a lot of these businesses are married couples. How did you guys meet? When did you all meet? And after 60 minutes, you get the good side, good scope of their life into how they started this business that everyone here in this local area appreciates. So it's for them, it's promoting them through their story. We've created a full network: Facebook page, Instagram page, website. It's plastered everywhere. These episodes, YouTube channel, it's all video based as well. So that's all for them. But now people are learning who I am. They're getting to know me by proxy. They're knowing what my podcast agency is. Right in the intro of this episode, I say brought to you by Shelby Row Productions. So I'm just planting those seeds in these episodes, which live on forever. But I'm building relationships with potential customers. Like, these are business owners that could probably need some media, and not just maybe a podcast, but do you need video editing? Do you need some graphic design? Do you need a website? We offer all these different things that they may need. I'm not going to come straight to them and be like, hey, so, and try to sell them my business. But through the course of interviewing these people, I get a handful of moments where I'm engaging with them in person and building a little relationship with them. And then they see us give them all this kind of love on social media as we cut clips and promote the episodes and promote their business for like a 2-week cycle, and give, and marketing 101, in hopes that once I really build a reputation and people get to know me, then we can circle back and, think of a way to turn them into a client as well.
I love it. How long has the Real Hernando been going?
It just launched in February. And it was a great experience because I joined the Chamber of Commerce last summer and started planning this podcast last summer. So it was 6 months of planning and developing with my team. We designed everything, all the graphic designing, the website, um, obviously all the production side of things, when it comes to recording and come December of last year, the chamber calls me like, "Hey, we'd like to schedule your ribbon cutting." And I'm like naive. I'm like, "I don't have a store. Like, don't you need like, don't you need a front door that you stand in front of with the ribbon, right?" And they're like, "Oh, no, no. Like, we do these for your kind of business too. We'll do it in front of the chamber office." I was like, "Excellent. All right, we'll do that." And then I found out, man, I can schedule it whenever. It's up to me on how to roll it out and plan it and design it and invite people. Obviously, members of the chamber show up too. Um, so around this time, we're moving along pretty good on developing the Real Hernando. And then I'm like, all right, I've decided I need to time this out. So the ribbon cutting is also the launch of the podcast. And so I scheduled something for February. I was like, February 8th. I was like, okay. And then now me and my team have a deadline. Now we really got to start rocking this thing. And we have a purpose and a goal set. And it went amazing. Ribbon cutting went amazing. The launching of the podcast went amazing. The local newspaper wanted to interview me, and I was in the newspaper. I mean, I can show it to you right here. I was in this newspaper right here. I just happen to have a copy right next to me. This is a video day right here. Look at me,
That's fantastic.
right? So, and embedded in that is, yeah, it's Real Hernando, but Derrick is the owner and CEO of Shelby Row Productions, a podcast production agency. Poof, like put it out there. Any return on that? Not yet, but it's out there. I'm building these relationships. I went to lunch with an alderman that knows me now. So the next step for me was always, how do I get local? And through this kind of organic, special way, I found that vehicle for that. And that was what I created, which was the Real Hernando.
Yeah, absolutely love it. So help me understand. You got the idea, um, last summer.
Yep.
You started to think this through, and you started to put the ideas together. So the idea, what I would call, is the whisper. All right, I think I need to do this. What were the steps that you put in place to make that happen? And then help me understand the reception from the business owners. How did you go about approaching the business owners?
The key ingredient in the beginning, the genesis of this is, as before I came up with the name, I had this idea as I left the farmer's market. So a couple weeks later, through a friend, I asked, who I should talk to open up a new bank account here. I wanted to go local in my banking. And my friend was like, go see this gentleman by the name of Robert Carter at Renaissance Bank. So I did. Well, he's doing his research and he just sees what my business is because I'm moving my business to them eventually. And he's very interested. He's like, wow, this is cool. Like, you're a podcast agency? Like, I've never seen this before, and we got to know each other. And I told him the idea I had. And he's like, I just started a Facebook page under that name. And I was like, okay, let's start working. And this guy knows everybody. He's the president of the high school boosters football club. He's very connected. So that was really when I was like, this has to happen, because the universe just lined me up with this gentleman that can introduce me to people. And on the back end, something we can talk about is how eventually I'm going to monetize this podcast, which really levels things up. But uh, and then off and running. That was all I needed to know, that it was okay for me to invest some money from the business. We self-financed all of this. Um, that's when I knew it's worth it. It's worth a try. Once I was at a point where I was ready to record some things, I asked for 3 names from him. I picked out 3 stores, and he knew 2 of the 3. So that was hey, I'm starting this new thing, and it wasn't published yet. It wasn't it hadn't launched yet. I'm trying to get recordings built up. But Robert Carter was that name. I had the name that showed credibility, and they're like, "Oh, okay." I think he may have even thrown out a text, "Hey, we're doing this. Uh, meet Derrick." Once I got a few recorded, then I'd ask them, "Who do you think would be interested in doing it?" And they were all enjoying it. They all really appreciated it and enjoyed the experience. Um, so then I got some referrals, did some more recording, and then once this thing launched and published, now when I pitch people more often than not, they're like, "Oh, yes, I'm honored. I loved all the episodes you've launched. I would love to be on it." You know what I'm saying? So now the word spread so that it's already an easy pitch. I'm not asking for money. I'm just asking for time. But now people know what's up, um, and which is very validating when you discover, wow, people are listening. You can look at your downloads, you can look at your social media engagement, which is all valid and great. But and when you have a post on social media that has 5 likes and a couple shares and a couple comments, but it has 2,000 impressions, you know, it's moving out there. People are engaging with it or seeing it. So, um, and the feedback I'm getting is like, thank you. Thank you for shining a positive light on the local community through these small businesses. Thank you for promoting us. You know, it's a lot of gratitude my way, which is again more validation. It's nice.
Yeah, which will come back to you. It'll come back to you in spades. It's just a matter of when, and that's the piece that um, is the hard thing about podcasting is you don't see an immediate return from podcasting. It just takes time, and I love your long vision on this. And so, one of the questions: how many small businesses are in Hernando?
Over 100.
Over 100. So you literally have over 100 possible episodes that you could do, which would fill up a couple of years, which would be fantastic.
Yeah, and we do every other week too. So that really, and then we're gonna break into more. I haven't figured out a nice little title for this series, but I'm gonna be booking time with the new high school football coach. I mean, dude, we're in the South. Friday Night Lights, big deal.
Yeah.
Big deal. They just brought on a new coach, so we're gonna do a good interview with him, and then time it so we launch it 2 weeks before the season starts. I want to talk to the police chief. Let's talk to the fire chief. All these. Uh, um, Close to booking something with the mayor. Right? Talk about networking and shaking the right kinds of hands. The trick with the mayor is, and we haven't spoken directly, but mutual people are putting this together, and he's very clear. He knows that I'm very clear on no politics in this podcast. So it's like we're gonna have to frame it. Who's the person, not the politician, Um, and so there's endless possibilities. That's really nice. And I know about all these businesses because I picked a day to be like, all right, I'm just going to drive around and write down every small business and pull into every little strip section. And okay, this one, all right, there's 5. It's because you just drive by these places. Sometimes it just turns into background, you know. And then I just kept finding another nook somewhere off of the main street in the back. Like, oh wow, there's like a boutique and another salon, and it took half a day to circle the city and keep finding these places, and yeah, it's over 100, and they're all kicking butt and expensive. Like, you go to one of the clothing boutiques here, I mean, if you wanna buy a 1 pair of pants, a belt, and a shirt, that's $300. People are supporting them, and because the community here wants to go out of their way to help.
Yeah, this is such a fantastic idea. I love this what's next idea for you. One more question regarding your what's next is what are your thoughts for monetizing this down the road? Help me understand that.
So, there's a couple different ways to do this with ads. Which I'm very fortunate because, yeah, I have potential to actually monetize with ads and sponsorship, which is difficult for most podcasts because you don't have a big audience. So you try monetizing in different ways, exclusive stuff on Patreon, um, monetization through promoting a monthly subscription Zoom coaching program, whatever. But I have the benefit of building a local audience that's going to want to support, and be willing to pay a decent amount of money for an ad, even though episodes are getting 80 downloads. So I'm benefiting from that. So But there's kind of two things you can do here. You can do ads, which you have the pre-roll, mid-roll, post-roll. I think that's self-explanatory. A little ad in the front, middle, and back, and then it's charged differently. The pre-roll is more expensive than the post-roll, obviously, because more people are going to hear the front one. Um, but then there's also title sponsorship, and that's really what I want to get first. And that is the company that is going to pay X amount for the full year. I'm getting quarterly installments. So now it's steady income, and they're everywhere. Every intro. Brought to you by Shelby Row Productions. This episode is sponsored by XYZ. Their logo is all over our social media posts. Their logo's on our website. I mean, everywhere we can mention their name, show their logo, tag them on all our posts. Just make sure everyone knows that this business is sponsoring us. That's what I'd like to start first and just get there, because that will, in a way, kind of acts like an angel investor. They're not going to own a percentage of the podcast, but it instantly just gives me some capital to come in and cover the costs to do this, because and then invest some, and then make some money too, Gabe. I mean, let's be real here. We're trying to make some money, trying to upgrade, trying to pay off debt is what I'm really trying to do right now. But so yeah, so that would be the next step, as I'm actually working on the presentation and trying to figure all that out. And here's the other thing: this is all new to me. Just like when I started the business, it's like it's constantly learning. You make a next step, you decide what you want to do for that next step, but then now you're figuring it all out in real time and making mistakes along the way, and then that's how you learn.
Yeah, it's exactly how you learn. The thing you got to do is you got to get clear. All right, what's my next step? And then the interesting thing is, once you get clear, the next steps start to show themselves. Like you had said, well, I decided I might go change my banking. And next thing you know, you meet the banker who knows everybody.
Yep.
And that then was kind of like you said, the universe coming together going, all right, I got to do this.
It's good stuff.
It is really good stuff. I absolutely love it. Well, this is a podcast about money. And we've asked these questions to you once before, but we're going to do it again because the answers might be different. So there's 3 questions I ask of every guest. First question is what's the smartest thing you've done regarding money?
Honestly, it's the Real Hernando. I know that seems like an easy answer, but I did put a lot of money into it. I've fit it in my budget. So I made it so I didn't need ads and sponsorship for it to survive. I planned it all out and made sure that the business could handle it. But every dollar I spend in that is well spent, because the return is going to be there. It's going to come in spades, like you said. Not only for people to learn who I am and what I do, but then the monetization of the podcast eventually. So the return is going to be great.
So what we'll have to do is have you on in another year or 2
Yeah.
and have you kind of give all right, here's what's going on. Remember that Real Hernando story we had back in 2022? Here's what it's done. And then that would be a great way to kind of tie that back in sometime down the road. I think that'd be cool.
What would be special is when that happens, my background is my studio office in the middle of the city.
Yes. Yeah, that would be awesome.
That's the big picture.
Yeah. Love it. Absolutely love it. So let's go to the other side. What's the biggest mistake you've made regarding money? And tell me that story.
I remember what I said last time, and I'll repeat it because I'm very passionate about this. I bought a Ford Focus that was the lemon squeeze of lemon squeeze. Like, it was okay. So there you go. Sorry, Ford, but but on a business front, I'm sometimes I get a little manic and excited about something, and then I feel like I need $3,000 worth of equipment and money well spent, because I have stuff that will be used, but I have a lot of stuff I can't use right now that I didn't really need, that drove a little debt, right? So that's kind of my falling sometimes, is investing in stuff that, if I would have just sat back and thought about it, okay, let's chill a little bit, instead of spending $3,000 on a credit card. Let's save for 6 months and buy half of that for cash, you know, but I can't really think of one particular moment of, man, I wish I didn't, spend that money, because I've also invested in a lot of coaching, which is valid and great. But sometimes when you hire a coach to be coached, it's on you to do the work. And come to find out, I'm probably not a good coachee. So, and I put that on myself. I still learned a ton, but when I look at, man, I spent a lot of money on this coaching and I didn't really step up like I should have. Was some of that wasted? Arguable, but definitely gained. I learned things too. So, but at least I'm throwing money at the business. I'm not crazy and need, 5 widescreen televisions personally. I'm pretty simple when it comes to my personal spending.
Yeah. Well, we as business owners have a tendency to, no matter how focused we are, we have a tendency to get a little squirrel, a little squirrel flying through us. Oh, I really got to have that.
Hmm.
And I'm reminded of a story. I have a client of mine who many years ago um, called me up and said, "Hey, I think I want to go buy this piece of equipment." I'm like, okay, well, tell me about this piece of equipment. Well, the equipment's like $175,000. I think I want to buy this piece of equipment. I think I can use it for my business, but I don't really need it for my business all the time. So I think I could probably then rent it out. And I said to him, I said, well, let me ask you this. If you don't need that piece of equipment, all right, and you're not sure you're going to use it all the time, why would you go buy that piece of equipment? Well, I feel like I really need it. I'm like, okay, well, you're telling me that you don't really need it. You're telling me that you're not going to totally use it all the time. I said, what would it cost to rent that piece of equipment for the couple of jobs that you need it for coming up? Because there was a couple of jobs coming up. I said, you don't know if you have those other jobs past that. I said, what if you just rented? Okay. Yeah, I'll look into that. Well, turned around, he ignored me. He bought the damn piece of equipment, and it's been a thorn in his side and the business's side for now about 10 years. And so that's one of those, when you said the equipment, I thought instantly of him. And I thought, you know what, if you just would have listened to me, you wouldn't still be paying the debt on that $175,000 piece of equipment that does not get used all the time. I mean, it just makes no sense.
Thankfully, I'm way down the scale on the amount. But in my closet, I have a nice lighting system, another soundboard, bunch of microphones, headphones, because I anticipated on having a podcast with all, like the Joe Rogan setup, cameras.
Yep.
I'm not using any of it, But when I do go brick and mortar, now I have some things to use. So that's the little side note I have in my head. Like, well, it wasn't a total waste. You will eventually use them and need them, which is true. But maybe I could have waited till then to buy all that.
Yes, and that is generally a great lesson. It's like, maybe wait a little bit, even if it's just a 24-hour rule. Like, give yourself 24 hours to then come back to it before you go drop the credit card down to buy things. So yeah. So third question I ask everybody on my show is, what does mastering your finances mean to you?
Man, same answer I'm going to give you than last time is killing my debt. This time, though, because we recorded several months ago, now I actually have a plan in place, and, it's a long game, but there's no month that goes by without principal being smacked across the face. So that feels good knowing that I'm going in the right direction. Uh, but as far as, like, because everyone wants to be debt free, but for me, the vision and the picture I have is, man, just have a nice three bed, two bath house with a garage, loft, couple new vehicles. I don't need the Corvette. I would like a full size Toyota Sequoia, you know, something that's going to last forever. And that's really it. I don't need a lot. Love to be able to take more vacations, travel the world. But I don't need a yacht. I don't need to. I want to be a millionaire, though. I mean, let's be honest. I want to. it'd be nice if I netted $1 million a year. That'd be pretty awesome. Got a ways to go, but that would all of that right there would really make me feel successful and like I've accomplished the American dream in a way, you know?
Yeah, I absolutely love it. Let's go, and I'll follow that up. Your next step is keep working on your debt. Once you're done with your debt, you move on to the next step. And so, to kind of tie this whole series in, work on debt, and then your next step is you got to start building up savings. You got to start building up retirement. You got to start building up those things to then allow you to get to that $1 million dream, that piece that you want to be. So, and what you could do is just keep listening to Solopreneur Money because I talk about that like all the time. so,
And you have
yes.
you have a new book.
Yeah, yeah, that came out January 11th, 2022. It's been out for a little bit now, and it has been going very, very well, which is fantastic. And thanks for asking about that. I appreciate it.
Yeah. I
So
have a copy right behind me. I
perfect.
haven't got to it yet. You know, I'm not going to oversell that, but it's right here. I mean, within arm reach, I can pull it out.
Well, I appreciate that. So, is there anything else you'd like to share? And also, how can my listeners find you?
So the main spot to go is the website. It's shelbyrowproductions.com. There you can find links to the socials. And on a side note, I'm also breaking into some coaching myself that I'm looking to start. So I created a network called the Podcast Producers Network, which is an Instagram under the same name. These are all the same name: Instagram, Clubhouse, YouTube channel, Facebook group, and my podcast. They're all called the Podcast Producers Network, where I want to start working with solo producers that were like me, that are like I was 4 years ago, that want to scale up and need some help and coaching with that. So that's another next step, another entity. Like I don't have enough, but it's also a nice way to diversify the portfolio and have another eventual stream. But yeah, but as far as my agency, shelbyrowproductions.com.
ShelbyRowProductions.com, as well as if you are a podcaster and you want some coaching on how to scale your business up, go to Podcast Producers Network as well. Is that correct?
Yes, on Instagram, and then you can find everything else from there.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, Derrick, thank you very much for being on Solopreneur Money.
Thanks for having me again. That was fun.
Well, Solopreneurs, I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Mr. Derrick Michaud of Shelby Row Productions. My three takeaways are: one, listen to the whispers. Listen to those ideas, listen to those things that come up. And then once you get an understanding of what those whispers are, create a vision. Start to see, is that something you want to do? And then that third takeaway is take action. Put it into a next step for you in your business and your life. So those three, once again, are listen to the whispers, create a vision, and then take action. I appreciate you listening. My take action for you is please share this podcast with a friend. Keep this thing growing. One more small ask. I do have a YouTube channel called Solopreneur Money. Check it out if you would. Have a fantastic day.